Validating assets. The validate asset process is actually a process that where you can collect everything about your asset together and make sure that everything is working together and everything looks fine and as expected from an artistic point of view, and everything is working as expected from a technical point of view. And to make sure that for example, your clothes is simulating as expected, the hair is simulating as expected, the character animation and the body deformation are going as expected. The shader, the look and feel and everything. We are combining everything together in one complete test under a process defined and configured in Seneferu called validate asset. The way that if your asset passed successfully artistically and technically from the validate asset, then this means that most probably you won't need to touch this asset again when you go for lighting and rendering later, at least not for a technical reason. So let's get started. The first thing we will do, of course, I have some validate asset tasks are assigned to me. Let's start by this one. The first thing I will set the task to current, which will connect Seneferu Production Manager to Seneferu's task control inside Katana. And remember, of course, to select the application that you are going to use before setting the task to current. If you forget that, you can just click on this again. This will re-establish the connection with the application. In addition, I will set my task to in progress. And by the way, when I set the task to current, Seneferu is filling some graph state variables here based on the available assets in the database. So he found that these assets are available, then he filled these things, and these are the category, the contexts of the processes, and so on. So because anything or any asset that gets loaded in Katana by Seneferu Production Manager is actually loaded as reference to the asset using expressions. So when you switch any of these scene graph state variables, this will switch the whole scene to different shot or to different asset depending on what you are actually doing. Anyway, we will see these in more details now. The first thing I will do now after I set the task to current, I will do load dependencies. As you see here, we already have published some animation clip and the simulation test and hair test for this character. And what happened now is that the production manager loaded the Katana template and then loaded these simulation assets and connected them through the Katana template main node here that is named assembly. By the way, this has to be always named assembly. If you change it, these will be connected to a separate merge node and will not be fed until you feed it manually. So the template is coming actually with this called assembly, so these are getting connected to it directly. Anyway, so these are alembics. If your pipeline is configured to use USD, then these will come as USDN. Even the alembics, if you have some assets as alembics, it will be loaded using Pixar USDN. The only thing I will talk about here, these are alembics, you know about them, but I want to talk a little bit about this because this is actually in our hair life group, which has some assets inside. This is now locked. Let me unlock it to show what is inside it. This has some graph that was built automatically by the production manager when we loaded the hair. He made this life group that has all the NR hair caches that we have published from Maya. These are the Alembic files are passing through and configured to run through the NR hair procedural for RenderMan and Arnold actually, but the Arnold one is still in alpha version, so you might not be having it when you have this version. So the reason why we wanted this to be configured to be loaded as live group is actually because it has complex graph inside, so we want to be able to easily switch between different simulation versions the same way that we can do for any other simpler loaded assets. Like in this case, we can query this to version. For example, this is version 1. We can switch to different version and click on set version and so on. So that is the reason, and also to make it easy to switch between different assets later. So let's get started by rendering this character here. We may also switch this to 1. We don't want motion blur now. And let's do live render. So this is it, and as you see, everything resolved as expected. And of course, the hair is so bad grooming is just for testing. Let's say that we want to switch to another asset. Let's, for example, another character like this one. And let's try one more. Let's, for example, go to this lady here and watch. Also notice that in our hair that we use to do the simulation, that when we load it as a live group, it has also expressions that you can modify all the hair properties in render time, like controlling the density, length, width, or any other information or any other parameters of the hair. Let's take this here. Let's say, for example, that I want, let's make the length 0.9. shouldn't increase too much. Yeah, anyway, you got my point. You can control the hair here. You can, for example, for far characters, you can increase the width of the hair and reduce the density to improve the performance or whatever you want to do. Because all these hairs are generated around the simulated groom curves, so you can do whatever you want to do with them here. Let's see now how to apply variants. Seneferu has two types of variants actually. Geometry variants, which is appearing here in besides the asset variant, and the look variant, which is more like a texture variant. The geometry variant is something like if the model, for example, glass and glass broken. The broken is a variant that have variant in the geometry itself, or when this is an assembly and different assembly from the same set. For example, for close shot assembly, close assembly, long, extreme long, something like that. So these are all appearing under geometry asset variant. And if a character or asset has look variant for different textures, for example, dirty, sweat, whatever, different types of looks, then when you click on get variants, they will appear here. But what you have to do first is to select the object that you want to query the variants for. For example, let's query the variants for the body. When I click here, now you will find that because this asset has variants in the database, they will appear here. So let's now watch the monitor again, and you will have to select this because you need to tell Seneferu where you want to apply it. And let's apply, for example, this variant. Sorry, I had to click on this because this is setting the primitive variable, this is setting the look variant, so I want the look variant. So here the system is asking you if you want to apply it to the whole asset or just the selected object. I will say that only the selected location. So now, as you can see, this is now having different look. I applied the makeup. And let's say that I want to apply now a different look. I can select this. Let's disable this one and select again the object and set look, only selected location. So now, as you can see, the other look is applied. By the way, what you can also do is to go to here and on the variant node itself, you can say, for example, makeup. This will set the variant to this one. This is also another alternative to switch between the loops, but of course setting them from here is more proper, because here you can query what is available and select the proper one that you want to apply. And if you say to all the asset, it will be applied to the whole asset rather than just one object. So let's publish this by clicking on the publish button. This will ask for snapshot. I will not take a snapshot for the girl now. And here, if there is any play blast or something you have done, you can point the system to it here, so it can be published with the files. And now, because this process is configured that it can run on the farm, it's asking you or giving you this publishing action. If I click now on submit preview render, it will render the first and middle and last frame of this. And if I say submit to render, this will submit to the farm the whole sequence for rendering. Let's say that you have configured the turntable, or you have loaded the turntable from here that is coming with the dependencies. And when you click on publish, this will submit the render to Tractor or Sony OpenQ. So depending on what did you configure your system for. And by the way, because this process is actually, this is just a confirmation, this process, and as you can see, the task went to processing. Processing means that the task now is processing on the farm. When the processing is finished and the result is published again to Seneferu, this status will go to review, and all the production and the supervisors will be notified that they have something to review. In that case, it will be, for example, the turntable or the animation of this character that have been published. And as you noticed before the publish, the task control have set this back to the man. So that's it. By the way, notice that this type of processors that doesn't have short frame range, this will be the default frame range. So if the animation, like in this case, is way much longer than this, you will have to set the frame range in the render node here. You have to override the frame range here, so this one will be used instead. Otherwise, so you can set them here, and this is of course before you publish. I will not do that now. On the other side, you can set it in the project itself, but if it's recommended that you do it in the render node. So if you have different render layers where each one of them having different range, then this will be used instead. If this is a shot related task, Seneferu Production Manager will automatically look into the most reliable edit and will find the most suitable frame range and will set it automatically in Katana here, and will and accordingly that will go to the render, so the user avoid making mistakes regarding to the frame range. Seneferu Production Manager will take care of this. If he's not sure or he didn't find the suitable frame range, he will rely on what is there in the database, or will warn you to double check and provide the correct frame range. If we switch back now to the render queue, we will find that we have the job is now running here on the farm for publishing. But of course, all this render, it's actually, we didn't configure the camera or anything. That will be what we are seeing here. It's not the good, it's not a good view for the render or anything. So now when the task finished rendering, it submits this to, it submits what was rendered to the asset. So, and if we click on Shift Play Media now, we should see the rendered footage, but of course I rendered just 2 frames and I skipped the others. So of course, as you can see, the camera is very bad and looking in. So, but this is the concept, and this didn't refresh actually, but the validate asset now is reverted. The validate asset now is art review, which means that the supervisor have notified that there is something for him to review. Now let's look at this asset, which has asset geometry variant and look variant in the same time. So what we are going to do is to, if I selected the asset here, if I click on get variants, this will detect that there is damage A and B and there is damage A and B. If I applied now, let's select this, yeah, it's already selected, and if I applied damage A, look, then, sorry, I will have to select the object, yes, it's applied already. Then this will apply only the look, but let's disable this. So we revert back, and now I will apply the geometry variant, which is set geometry variant. I will have to select this first. Now this I will just need to, I think, to restart the render. As you can see now, when we applied the asset variant, both the asset and look variants are applied. But you can apply only the look variant without the asset variant. And now if I selected this and applied the last variant, then this will show. As you notice that when we, as I was just saying, when you apply a geometry variant, this applies both the geometry and the look. And if I switch this back to 1 or damage A, This, as you can see, has updated to this one. So that's it regarding to the variants. And notice that also, if you are not aware of this already, that Pixar USD is already having variants. But the difference here that the variants that Seneferu provides, you can manage these versions in the database itself. So each variant of the asset will have multiple versions, and the other variants of the same asset will have multiple versions. Then, for example, like the girl that we were rendering, if we have 5 versions of the tattoo and 2 versions of the makeup, Seneferu Production Manager will be able to manage these versions and return the approved version of them whenever the user is asking for the variants for this lady or for this asset. So this way you can have more control on selecting which one do you want based on what was approved in the database, rather than getting the asset from inside previously assembled asset or whatever. And of course, as usual, we can switch to different asset. Let's start render. Yeah,